Well, the big day is finally here. After months, practically an entire year of gathering parts, gathering money to buy parts, researching to get parts, and choosing the right parts, pardon me, I finally have all the parts here and I'm ready to build. I've been wanting to build a new computer for a while now, ever since I had issues with my last one, which, if those of you may remember me on Twitch, I have streamed myself building my last computer, which was inside of a Cooler Master half stacker, the big one and the little one on top of another little one, which was my streaming PC. It took an entire year just to figure out which parts of the pipes I needed for what I needed for what I wanted to build. Want, it's practically blended together at this point. But I think I have the right build now, and I am happy. You may notice from watching this, there's a lot of Thermaltake parts in here, and that's because, for what I had in mind, Thermaltake seems to do the trick. Although I probably might swap them out for other models later, other models and brands. And after playing around with PC Building Simulator, I got the best case in mind right here, the Fractal Design Define R6 USB-C. I can't wait to start building this. I'm just so excited. I can't wait. I just can't wait. Alright, let's get started. So, day one is done, although it's not really much of a day. It wasn't just an evening. It is now 1 o'clock in the morning, and here I am jutting the camera around like I'm like some kind of schizophrenic mental patient. I don't know. My mind isn't working like it should. I thought I had everything. I thought I had my shit together, and apparently I don't, because I didn't think to look at the radiator when a friend of mine named Reed suggested the black ice radiator to me. Turns out it was for 140 millimeter fans, and all the Thermaltake lighted fans that I bought are all 120 millimeters. So yay, I screwed up. So I put the stock fans in place over the radiator, and it's not going to be what I was hoping that it was going to be, but there we go. It's there. Whether we buy 2 more fans and attempt this again, I have no idea. Oh, sorry, 3. I can't forget about the one in the very back. That's also a 120 millimeter that I put back there, even though it can take a 140. Which, hey, it would help, because Thermaltake, they only sell them in sets of 3 anyway. At least as far as I know. So I didn't get very far. I'm not even sure what the hell this part here is called. I just know that it was all the way up here at first, and I had to take the entire case apart just to move it. And of course, I had to get Dad to help, because I didn't have the right screwdriver, and he has extensive knowledge of screw bits. You can tell my voice is starting to give out, because fuck it, I'm tired. Oops, did I cuss? You may be hearing a little bit of crumpling in the background. That's actually the cat trying to get on the coffee table and mess around with things, which is another problem. I have a cat in this house, which means there's a possibility the cat is going to mess around with this computer. Just a fact of life. And here I am presenting dead air. I'm having this problem to where I am just freezing for almost minutes at a time. It's like my mind is a really bad computer. It's trying to think of what to do next, and it's having that weird problem in Microsoft Explorer to where you're opening a folder, you're about to do something with a file in a folder, maybe you go to a subfolder or whatever, but the cursor is flickering in between the cursor and an hourglass. It's trying to load something, it's trying to exist, but it's having difficulty. It usually takes about almost 45 seconds at a time. Well, imagine something like that happening, but for several minutes. That's my brain right now. That's my brain as it was earlier this evening. I was tired, and I don't know why. Maybe it's the cold weather outside, but I just could not focus for most of the evening. And yes, I did stop to get something to eat, but that's beside the point. I still could not focus. Maybe it's because I'm worried that this isn't going to work. Because, hey, if I can screw up one thing, what else could I wind up screwing up? I shouldn't be having these kinds of bad vibes, these kinds of bad thoughts, but at the same time, I'm just so used to things going wrong that I'm expecting it. And I shouldn't be expecting the wrong things to happen, but it's just one of those things. So, tomorrow evening, when I get home from work, which is around 8 o'clock, well, first I'm going to sit down and relax a little bit. Then I'm going to come in here and work a little bit more. Probably not a whole lot, but I'll try and get something finished. And then I got to work all day on Saturday, which will be day 3. I might be able to get something accomplished then as well. Hopefully, I'll have all the hardware in place ready for my next day off, which will have to be the plumbing. The plumbing is going to be a royal pain in the ass. But maybe I can hold off on the plumbing. I still have to think about that. These videos I'm recording, this isn't even going to go up until the new computer is done anyway, so it's not much of a big deal, I guess. But yeah, that's the computer so far. I'm going to sign off on day 1. Next up will be day 2. Day 2 is in the books. And as you can see, we have made significant progress. When I say we, I do mean myself and my father, who has helped me with a couple of troublesome spots here and there. I can't really thank him enough for his help, because there's a couple of things there that I was just having way too much trouble with, like, for example, getting that M2 solid-state drive secured, because that screw is just really, really tiny. Luckily, he had some really tiny screwdrivers handy for getting that thing in there. Potatoes coming back up for the 3rd time. As you can tell, my voice is still breaking, and I'm guessing it's some kind of cold going around, maybe, possibly. As you can see, the new capture card, which is a AverMedia Live Gamer HD2, and an EVGA GeForce 1080 FTW hybrid. That's now installed, which is it's an 8 GB card, which is really nice. And as you can see, there's 2 cables coming out of the middle of it. Actually, there's 3, but we'll get to the third one. These are water cooling pipes. Tucking the radiator fan inside the case there was no easy task. Getting the cables to not interfere with the fan, that was another feat as well. In fact, I had to spin the fan several times to make sure that it would not connect at all with the power supply cables. And after a while, I managed to get that squared away. Mostly this day was spent managing and getting all the cables in place and figuring out just where the hell some of these cables go and how to optimize their placement. And to be fair, I'm still trying to figure out where exactly all the cables are going to go. And here I'm going to spin the case around so you can get a good look at the back. Funny enough, the Fractal Design manual doesn't really say very much about the fan controller here. It took me a while to find out that this is the fan controller. But once I found out, I plugged everything in there, and thank goodness I found out about that, because that would have been that would have been tough to deal with. It's gonna be a pain getting all those cables squished into place, but once all that's done, things will be hunky dory, peachy keen. The system drive in my current computer is going to be going back here, and I made sure to save a set of SATA cables for at least 2 solid-state drives. I also saved another cable to go in the front, or at least the more visible side, so that I can maximize how many solid-state drives I could put in here without compromising the plumbing once that's all set up. Something I'm kind of irked at with Thermaltake, these fan controller boxes, there's no mounting of any kind in here, so I'm not quite sure where exactly I'm supposed to be putting these. I've asked in my Discord, and I'm asking in several servers, as well as the water cooling Discord. Maybe they can help me out with that. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it could go anywhere, especially after plugging in all the different fans. But yeah, that's day 2 in a nutshell. Hopefully we'll get all the hardware taken care of in day 3, and we'll get started on the plumbing finally. Here's hoping. I want to get this thing finished. I honestly cannot begin to recall how many days it's been since I filmed what was essentially day 2. It's been probably a week since we finished what was essentially day 3 of building. But day 3 isn't quite accurate. It took several days to finish the plumbing, unfortunately, because there was a couple of issues with just several fittings that was not quite what we were looking for. And when I say we, I do mean my father helped me as well. I can't take full credit. Hell, I can't even take half the credit. I did about maybe 40% of the work regarding the pipes. However, I did get measurements regarding the fittings, so I do know what to do next time. Next time. I have a feeling that there probably will be a next time within at least 3 years, maybe 4 years. Let's not go that far ahead right now. Let's talk about the present. Yes, my father helped me with the pipes because I know little about measuring. I know about plugging. I know about plugging cards in. I know about plugging devices, cards, silicone cards into PCI slots. I know that much. I know how to stick DIMMs into DIMM slots. I know how to put a CPU inside of a CPU socket, whatever. I even know how to mount fans to a case. But I knew nothing about measuring pipes. I guess there's a reason I don't work at Lowe's. But anyway. There was a couple of issues with some pipes and pipe fittings. Getting the right measurements, that was the problem. Once we got the measurements down, it was a matter of making sure that the fittings were solid and secured, and we tried pouring in the coolant, and there was a leak. Luckily, it wasn't bad. It wasn't horrific. It was just simply going over this fan. That's pretty much it. And even then, the fan wasn't on, so we were able to get the coolant out of there. Unfortunately, coolant isn't like water to where it can evaporate, to where water could evaporate. Coolant is, well, coolant. It's a chemical compound. It's not going away. But luckily, we were able to get it up and out of there. And what we couldn't, we just simply let fall through the grating down to the table. Gosh, I can talk well at 1 o'clock in the morning. So everything is in place. The reservoir is in place, and I definitely shot for the moon on this one. I thought I was going to need a 300-liter reservoir. Turns out I do not. 3-liter reservoirs are for people who want to set up like a dual loop system, or cool their CPU and their graphics card. I was a little scared to go that far. Maybe next time. Next time. No, I'm not even going to go there. Fuck it. Technically, though, there is a water-cooled function here in the EVGA case. This is in fact the EVGA hybrid for the win. FTW, I mean. I guess it means for the win. Hybrid, meaning it's air-cooled and water-cooled. It's got a water cooling radiator at the very, very bottom. Right down there. There's a fan with a radiator. That was another thing I overthought. I I honestly thought I could change out the fan on it and replace it with one of the lit fans, but I couldn't. There was a lot of things that was wrong with this design, and unfortunately, some of it's my own fault. As I've mentioned in previous entries, I I mistook what sizes I could use for the radiator. I didn't look that far ahead. That's my own fault. It's no one else's. I overestimated how much I could actually fit in terms of the valve system. Let me tilt over a little bit here. As you can see, it comes from the reservoir, and it goes to a T section. Part of the T section goes upward through to the rest of the loop, but there's also this other part right here. This is how to get the coolant out whenever it's time to change it out and or just flush it out. I just turn that valve and it comes out right here like a faucet. Yay. Shit works. And I made sure to do all the measurements. I can get the side on it, so there's no worries there. And I made sure to leave enough room regarding the pipes so I could eventually fill up those remaining 2 DIMM slots with 32 more gigs of RAM in case I really, really wanted to max it out, which I might still do. It'll just be a while because, well, that type of RAM costs a lot of money. Pardon me, I'm having nasal problems. There was another problem regarding the leak. We weren't quite sure if the fittings were secured or if there was some other problem. And this other problem was that I did something really, really stupid. You see, when I first got the fittings in the mail back in, I think it was late November, my dad and stepmom were about to go on a carnival cruise down to the Bahamas. And out of curiosity, I opened up the bag of fittings. I took out one of the elbow 90-degree pieces here, and I stuck it up against the pipes because I was wanting to see whether or not I had in fact got the right size, because a certain someone in our little community had stressed, well, he did stress that I need to make sure I got the right sizes, but he also kept telling me, go see this guy's videos, go see this guy's videos. He has all the answers, essentially something like that. Look, I've come to enjoy Jay's 2 cents. I come to enjoy his videos. Shout outs. He does some great work. He put out a lot of great videos. I'm not going to scroll through thousands of videos just to look for how to measure pipe fittings, how to get the right pipe fittings. 5 minutes in a water cooling Discord got me the answer I needed after months and months and months of waiting for this person to just fucking tell me. It's amazing how that shit works. Just if you don't know, then ask someone who knows. If that person does not know, go to any place that might know. And evidently, water cooling Discord knew. So when I got the right size fitting, I had to see whether or not it would actually fit in the pipe. So I went ahead and unscrewed the cap and put the pipe in the fitting and then just fit it in place, screwed it on, and an O-ring popped out. I thought nothing of it. And then came crunch time and, well, there was the leak. There was 2 elbow pieces that were left. This one and another one.
And it turned out it was the one, this one. It was the one that I had mistakenly popped out the O-ring. Luckily, I had plenty of spare O-rings, so we were able to fix that problem pretty quickly. And it turned out that was the case. So, yay! Everything flowed perfectly. There was a slight problem. There was a problem up there. There's a fill port. That was a real issue. Just simply getting the right fittings, the right sizes up in there. Once we got that fill port set up, there was another problem. We were having vapor lock issues, and I looked it up, and evidently it's still only an issue that you would have with your fuel engine in your car. Not something you would expect to see in a water cooling rig. But evidently there was some kind of vapor lock, and what vapor lock essentially means is that when you put your fuel or in this case your coolant into your rig, it tends to overflow rather quickly before it even reaches the first bend. We weren't sure why, and we're still not quite sure why, but evidently it's got something to do with vapor lock. So we had to go very, very slowly when pouring it in. And I mean really slowly. I mean like drip by drip by drip. There wasn't even a solid stream. It took probably about 10 minutes to pour the whole thing in there. Actually, that's not true. We didn't even pour the whole bottle of X1 in there. I was looking backward to see what exactly the bottle was. I can't recall the name of it for the life of me. Just look in the description of this video. You'll see what model it is, because I'll be listing all the parts. But but yeah, there's still about maybe a fifth of a bottle left over. But yeah, we managed to get everything in there. All the way up to the tapper is filled up, and a good friend of mine, at least an old friend of mine, Jason, he told me on Facebook to make sure to test the pump to make sure the whole thing works. And unfortunately, I don't know anything about shorting out shorting out the power supply or the motherboard to activate only the pump. I don't know anything about shorting shit. So I went and got a Molex to a wall socket adapter with a switch, and I was able to turn the pump on that way. And lo and behold, holy shit, it worked. The pump was able to function. It was able to plumb all the way through the pipes and through the loop and back again. And holy fuck, I was just on a high from the whole thing working. I didn't even care. I didn't even care if the machine would turn on, because I had this problem with the last computer as to whether the computer would even turn on. The last computer, it was DOA. I mean, the motherboard was DOA. I was on such a high that the plumbing worked that I didn't even care if the motherboard was DOA, or if the video card was DOA, or the CPU was DOA. I didn't care about any of that. But luckily, after moving the computer to the living room, plugged into the TV there, I turned it on. We were a little worried because even though the whole contraption turned on, the motherboard was lit, all the fans were lit, all the fans were spinning. There was no picture for about maybe a minute and a half, and then holy shit, the red triangle of freedom American Megatrends. I was never so happy to see that logo. I was just so happy that we had picture. We had picture. Holy shit. And in the next video, I'm cutting all these together eventually. And in the next portion, you will be seeing this computer in action. So stay tuned. So it's been a month since my last segment, and unfortunately a lot of bullshit has taken place, and which has prevented me from finishing the vlog compilation. Gotta get my chops back up to speed. So I'll show the new PC as it whirs and spins as I read off what has happened since my last test of the supposedly working rig, which was a Twitch stream of Zelda 2 on the Famicom disc, played via the Switch. And yes, you heard me right. For the final chapter of the vlog, I am actually reading off a script, as before I was attempting to shoot off the cuff while filming with my phone. Ugh. A little parched there. I think it's obvious that my ad-libbing skills need a lot more work before I can even think about podcasting. So the entire time I had the machine running, there were two nagging problems that wound up grinding everything to a halt. Problem number one. Back when I was using two computers, I was using a mixer recommended by Darish of the old Lordcad Mafia. Unfortunately, this standard only worked to a degree, as the mic was always low, as you'd hear from a lot of my playthroughs. No matter how much adjusting I made, despite how well I could be heard live on Twitch, the recorded broadcast would not feature my golden tones. Years later, when condensing the setup to one machine, I had learned that the Windows 7 driver for the Behringer Xenix Q804 USB was not only difficult to install, but it was also gone. Music Club, who now owns Behringer, had removed the drivers and replaced it with a generic ASIO for All installer that did not seem to work all that well. Darish had managed to find the driver for me, and I installed it, but having to unplug and replug the USB cable several times during installation, turned out to be very frustrating, and also costly. But we're getting to that. Oh, sorry, hiccups. Problem number two. When planning out the comp, I wanted to make sure that there would be no mechanical drives at all inside the case, providing more room for the Thermaltake 300 milliliter reservoir and pump. So I started using a Mediasonic USB 3.1C enclosure, which came with a Type-C to Type-C connector. When trying it out with my previous machine, I had no Type-C connectors on my motherboard. So I used a 3.1 Type-C to Type-A to get it to work. The Republic of Gamers Crosshair Hero 6 board that I upgraded to had such a connector, so I wanted to plug the enclosure in as it was intended, but it would not connect at all, despite being connected. Plus, there was a lot of drive errors being reported in the event viewer. Similar drive signatures, paging operation faults, you name it. And after every attempt to plug it in, nothing was working. So I went to the BIOS and changed a couple of settings here and there, eventually setting one that enabled the use of the USB 3.1 plugs, and then my heart sank. USB overloaded detected. Your PC will shut down in 15 seconds. I was worried that the enclosure had screwed everything over completely, so I unplugged it. Overloaded. Unplugged everything except the keyboard and mouse. Overloaded. Unplugged everything but the DisplayPort connectors. Overloaded. Looking up the error, apparently the motherboard was, for the lack of a nicer word, fucked. So, out of desperation, I abandoned the Crosshair board and overnighted an MSI Gaming Plus board. It arrived the next day as Dad and I were getting over a cold. I waited another day before working the new board in. For good measure, I popped out my new EVGA 850 watt 80 plus titanium for my older Seasonic 1000 watt 80 plus platinum, thinking that was the problem because, well, USB overload detected. It must mean that there's just not enough power. Later that evening, Dad and I worked on the plumbing again. Time came to test the machine, and there was no power at all. This pissed me off to no end. The next day, I took out the mobo and PSU and tested the bare components. No power. So I RMA'd the new board back to Amazon and got a replacement board. 2 days later. Damn, that was fast. It turned out that was the problem with the new board. As I tested the new board, and hey, it powered on. So, third time's the charm, I suppose. Plugged everything in, wired everything, plumbed it for a third time. I should mention that War Games was on the TV at the moment because Comet was playing a 80s marathon. Why I felt that this was important, I have no idea, but it just snuck out. I was worried about something else this time after plumbing all the goodies. The Mayhem X1 coolant had started bubbling nonstop during initial pumping. It didn't seem to die down like normal. Luckily, after an hour, I was like, fuck it, and tested the rig. My new PC was alive again, and best of all, the bubbles went away quickly. The mixer is gone. No sense worrying about fucking up the USB slots again, which leaves me with an unused Audio-Technica 4060 sitting next to me, using my webcam mic instead. So I'm looking into a suitable alternative. For the past week, I've been looking into why my Windows 7 key didn't work with Windows 10 anymore, as it did when I was running this machine with the Crosshair Mobo. After numerous tests and giving up and buying a box edition of Windows 10 Pro, the problem was solved again. It bothers me that there are still a few things about my own machine that I'll never understand for the life of me. After fiddling with Voicemeeter, I unfortunately cannot figure out a way to get it to output the audio to my 2 headsets and TV, and keep the game and movie audio from bleeding into Discord. So I had to ditch Voicemeeter along with the mixer. I'm sure I'll figure it all out eventually, but fuck me if this isn't frustrating. So this was the journey from Noriena to Noriena 2, if I am to name my machines. So, how well does it all work? Well, I played through Star Fox Assault on Dolphin with very little hiccups. Apparently having an NVIDIA 1080 helps. It's not a 1080 titanium though, so it's not entirely perfect, but you get what you pay for during what could only be described as the worst year in PC gaming. I'm still trying to figure out how to get my PS4 gamepad to work with Ubisoft games. I'm hoping that Parsec works, but I'll have to get the band back together to see about that. So after a month into 2019, here's to a good year streaming on Twitch and posting onto YouTube. Maybe now you guys can hear me. If there's any one person I have to thank for all of this, it would have to be my father. He knew more about plumbing than I ever will. He knew how much to cut. He knew how to measure the pipes, how much pipe would have to go into the fittings. He knew that it would be best to sand the edges of the cut pipes. I would never have thought of this. He taught me about vapor lock, which was an issue when putting the coolant into the machine to begin with, because just dropping it in didn't seem like it would work. So I'm going to try and point to a section here on the case. I'm not sure if it exactly points to it, but we'll try this anyway. You'll see a pipe going from my reservoir going to the very, very top of the machine. That's the fill port. And despite the fact that it goes straight to the reservoir, just pouring it in made the whole thing overflow to the point where the coolant was coming out the very top. I was not aware about vapor lock. After looking it up, it turned out, oh, it's just something that happens with your engine. Apparently that happens with water cooling loops as well. So I had to put it down in itty-bitty little drinklets. Drinklets. I know English well. Eventually, it all got filled in, and now it works. Yay. But I never would have been able to get that accomplished without my father, who I can't thank enough for this. And I hope that I can get him to come in here sometime while I'm broadcasting, because I would like to get him involved in all of this. There's a lot that he can share, and if it helps any, he also used to be a gamer much like the rest of us. He would, every time I brought up video games, he would bring up how much he played Galaxian back in his high school days. No, not high school days. His college days, I think. Yeah, he used to play Galaxian, but not Galaga. I'm surprised, or Galaga, as some would call it. I was surprised about that, considering it's a sequel. But such is life, I guess. So yeah, that's my new PC, and I think it's time to play some games.